pleased to be joined by Philip Lewis, the Director of Research at Intelatus, to discuss something that's happening across the maritime industry. That's energy transition. You know, we talk about energy transition relentlessly today across our media. Can you kind of give us that 50,000-foot view of what's happening today?
The driver behind all this, which I would imagine that most of the audience knows, is the IMO's strategy to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions. Now, that's against a 2008 baseline. That doesn't mean no emissions. It's by a baseline, by around 2050. So that's the overall strategy that people have signed up for. And the change over the last few years has been that emissions now are being calculated not just from the fuel tank on the ship to the shaft and the propeller and the wake, but from the production source and on a well-to-wake basis. So there's a lot of looking at how the energy carrier is produced, but really the main drive is reducing carbon intensity, becoming more efficient. Now, whether that be for emissions reduction or whether that be for health benefits, it's still a general trajectory. Now, according to DNV, who monitor this segment with their alternative fuels insight platform, around 99%, actually slightly over 99% of the operational fleet today runs on conventional fuels. So we're starting from a base where most vessels work on a hydrocarbon-based energy carrier. Now, over 17% of new builds, though, feature some sort of alternative fuel capability. What you're probably looking at is LNG is really, it's a transition fuel. It's not the end game, but it's the most common alternative fuel so far. And about 2/3 of the alternative fuel vessels would be LNG at the moment, followed by, let's say, methanol with around about 20%. Then you got LPG, hydrogen and ammonia. They just account for a fraction of that total alternative fuel fleet, around about 4%. But at the end, the aim is to have these hydrogen-based energy carriers like ammonia, like methanol, and look at how they're produced. But I would also say, you know, fuel's one part of the equation, but there are many other technologies involved to help reduce emissions. Route planning, slow steaming are the obvious go-tos, whole rudder propeller designs and coatings and cleaning, battery energy storage systems, wind-assisted propulsion, just to name a few. So it's not exclusively about fuels, and quite a few companies will be able to achieve their compliance requirements without actually having to go away from marine diesel and marine gas oil in the short term and mid-term, given these other technologies.
When I look at the industry that I started in and the industry today, it's so far different. In some ways, it's unrecognizable. One of the things that particularly catches my eye with this fuel discussion is all of the colors. Can you give a little background and insight? What is the issue with different colors? What do they mean?
Well, it's really, the issue is addressing the nature of production and really the hydrogen content. And this is faced by alternative fuels. Conventional fuels and also conventional hydrogen are produced from oil, natural gas, and coal. And the latter, that's the conventional hydrogen, is generally identified as a grey or brown hydrogen. They are not low or zero emission. If you add in carbon capture to try and take away the carbon, which is very much, for instance, a US approach, that allows the carrier to be classified as blue. Now, generating hydrogen from a renewable electricity source, wind, solar, tidal, or biomass regasification, that can lead to a green classification. And nuclear fuels, although not widely produced yet, there are plans for that, are pink or referred to as pink. So they're low emission, but not renewable. Now, the challenge is actually going to be, going forward, how to trace and certify on a well-to-tank basis the emissions from a reporting point of view, because at the end of the day, we're all interested in the result, but inevitably we're going to be asked to prove the result, and that's compliance and that's certification. And already we know with just marine diesel and marine gas oil, the amount of litigation in marine bunkers. And if you start looking at a hydrogen molecule, you can't tell if it's green, blue, brown, pink, whatever. You need the certification to tell you that, and to a certification that you can rely on. And at the moment, there is no global certification scheme. There are many different regional certification schemes, and none of them are exactly the same. So we don't have a standard. Now, today, green fuels are limited in global supply. So anything that runs on a low or zero emission carrier, a hydrogen-based carrier, ammonia, methanol, will be probably running on blue or grey hydrogen. Very few will be running on green. Short sea shipping can look to green solutions. If you're in a port-based situation or a ferry-based situation, those sorts of things, inland rivers. But vessels making international voyages are more likely to benefit from fuel flexibility. And that means engines that can run on conventional marine diesel or gas oil, as well as one or more of these alternative carriers.
We've kind of gone 50,000 foot. We've kind of gone broad. I want to go a little more specific,
Mm.
specifically on ammonia. When you look at Fortescue and the Green Pioneer, can you kind of give us a backdrop of why that ship is significant and what you see for ammonia in the maritime space?
Sure. I mean, I'll just address it. I mean, you mentioned Fortescue. They are an Australian mining company. Now, mining companies are not necessarily associated with low emissions and zero emissions. But as a company, they've been very high profile in challenging the paradigm as it is today and saying, no, we can plan by 2030 to be certainly in Australian operations or the on-land operations, low or zero emission, and in our scope ones, but in our scope twos, begin to look at that means the chartered in vessels, for instance, having ammonia vessels. Now, on the deep sea fleet, that's generally dual fuel ammonia carriers, but Fortescue's really pushing to go to the monofuel ammonia vessels. And their test bed for this is Green Pioneer. Now, Green Pioneer is a converted PSV, and it's basically it's a test bed. It seeks to prove that operations on 100% ammonia are possible today, not in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 15 years' time, but can be done today. Now, Fortescue has worked with the Maritime and Port Authority in Singapore to achieve a key milestone in the adoption of the ammonia as a marine fuel. The Green Pioneer was the first vessel to load liquid ammonia. It's not green ammonia, but it's liquid ammonia as a marine fuel in a vessel featuring dual fuel combustion engines. And that was ahead of conducting sea trials while operating on ammonia. So it's a Singapore flagged vessel now for that purposes, for bunkering ammonia and operating on ammonia, and has a DNV notification indicating that the vessel is designed for safe operation of a gas-fueled ammonia system. And the vessel also passed the UK Port State Control on entering the UK, as you say, as part of the recent visit. So these are important milestones to get a Singapore MPA registry acceptance and a UK Port State Control entrance. I believe the forward plan is to have Green Pioneer tour around some of the other ports, and I believe she may even, although Fortescue would have to confirm that, he's going to be calling it Norship, which should be quite interesting. Now, to be clear, the vessel is not being operated as a commercial vessel. Rather, it's to show the technology works, and it's to increase the knowledge of operating ammonia fuel vessels. And I would say that much still needs to be done in terms of available low and zero emission ammonia, and also with regards to adding to international safety and design conventions, because those were generally developed with hydrocarbons, conventional hydrocarbons in mind, firefighting, safety, and ammonia behaves very differently, and you can't run the same way. So I think one of the challenges that Fortescue worked very closely with Class and Flag was developing these systems, protocols, and regulations to allow the operation of the vessel, although they still had to comply with the current marine codes, which, as I said, are more conventional hydrocarbon based. And ships like Green Pioneer represent a significant evolutionary stage in that role to adopting low and emission energy carriers. it's a very interesting test bed.